central Brussels, and the residents are making their way through the lush greenery of the Parc Royal. This is a significant place. On the one side it stands the royal palace of the King Leopold II, a controversial ruler who oversaw the formation of the abandoned England and the Congo colonies. On the other is the Belgian Federal Parliament, where Prime Minister Charles Michel came to say sorry for what he thought the injustices done to the mixed race children in colonial time. The victims have been fighting for official accountability. They are lucky enough to hunt through an artist up there.
Merci beaucoup.
Celine smiles while Skyping her mother in DRC. She's been in Belgium since she was 12 years old.
3 fois j'ai fait une demande de visa.
I've requested the visa on 3 occasions to bring my mother and it's been refused 3 times. I want my mother to come to Belgium at least to meet her grandchildren and great-grandchildren before she dies, because she's 74 years old now.
Assoumani Boudawa is a Belgian Congolese and wrote a book about the history of these mixed-race children.
Pour beaucoup, on leur a fait croire qu'ils avaient été abandonnés par...
Many mixed children were made to believe that they were abandoned by their mothers, and sometimes they were told that their mothers were dead, but their parents were alive. But it must be said that these displacements or transfers of children constitute real kidnappings. Earlier this year, over a century later, the Belgian authorities finally made a public apology. Julie de Groot has served as the head of the Francophone Parliament in Brussels and has worked to persuade the government to admit its part in the forced abductions.
Les excuses présentées par the apologies that our Prime Minister gave to the mixed children of Belgium here in the Federal Parliament was a historical moment. This was the first time we put forward official apology about our colonial past.
Julie de Groot ending that report from the BBC's Prudence and Guillaume in French.
The BBC World Service connects audiences to the world. International youth, science, sports, arts and culture programming, BBC World Service offers listeners a global perspective. Distribution of the BBC World Service in the U.S. is made possible by American Public Media. APM produces and distributes programs that inform, inspire, entertain, and engage audiences.
been 10% for an awful long time. You can go back to prehistorical time in the caves. You can see the paintings of the hands. 10% has been very stable. And what we found for the first time in a study combining genetics and brain imaging was that it was actually due to certain genes that are related to what we call the cytoskeleton, which is an awful jargony word, but that means really the scaffolding of the cells that helps the organization and the construction and functioning of the cells. Left-handed people have a slight variation in these genes that are helping with the functioning basically of the cells, if you want, the scaffolding of the cells.
So it's a variation in the genes.
It's a variation in the genes, exactly. If you look at our entire DNA as a book, and you look at a gene, it's a chapter. Within that chapter, what you're going to have is a single letter change, and that single letter change brings you more, not necessarily at risk, I'll say, but of being a left-handed person.
A variation rather than a mutation.
It's a natural variation, absolutely.
So as well as being left-handed, what does that gene variation give to a person who is left-handed?
So what we could see, because we have this amazing report that's called the UK Biobank, we can also see into the brain, basically, of the UK Biobank participants. And what we could see was that the genes were expressing themselves in the brain with a difference in the way the white matter, which are these fibers that connect the neurons in the brain. So we could see a difference in this white matter connecting the language-related brain regions.
So a left-handed person has better verbal skills?
So that's a bit of a jump. What we see, you and me would like both to think that this is the case, but we have not quite shown that yet. That's really an area for future research. What we've shown, on the other hand, actually no pun intended, is the fact that in left-handed people, the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, precisely again in the same language-related regions, communicate in a more coordinated way. They oscillate in a more synchronized way, if you want.
So these are some of the advantages, if you like, of being left-handed.
That's what you would like to hope. Sometimes better connection doesn't necessarily mean better in terms of verbal ability in that specific case, but that's what, obviously, as a lefty, we have a conflict of interest here to declare. We would like to hope.
But there's a downside too, isn't there?
There are two things. What we've seen is that indeed the genes are also ever so slightly, I'd like to really stress that, ever so slightly related as well with having a slightly increased risk of having schizophrenia when you're left-handed, but also slightly lower risk of having Parkinson's when you are left-handed. But again, if you look at the numbers, this is something that is very modest in terms of the risk.
My mother grew up in rural Scotland. She was left-handed, and they tied her hand behind her chair.
Yeah.
In order to prevent her from using it. I mean, the people who forced her to do it made that connection, left hand, sinister,
absolutely.
Somehow...
Bad augurs, yes. It goes back to the Latin times, actually, the Roman times. The Greeks had it right, if you want. They were looking at the augurs. They were actually thinking that anything coming from the left was a good sign. And then somewhere along the line, it got changed into something sinister, as you say.
That was Professor Gwenaël Duot of the University of Oxford. Scientists researching the Greenland ice sheet say this summer's melting has been one of the most severe on record, and they warn that it's raised the level of the oceans. They say the rate of melting is accelerating and will increasingly threaten millions of people living in low-lying areas. Our science editor David Shukman has this special report from Greenland.
I'm on a fishing boat in a fjord in Greenland, and we're nudging our way through icebergs. They're a dazzling white, and with an incredible variety of shapes. And scientists here say more and more ice is entering the ocean, with global implications. Not only is the air getting warmer, but the sea is heating up as well, which erodes the glaciers from underneath, according to Pfizer Nick, who studied Greenland for years.
Since the oceans are warming up, we see a big effect on these glaciers. So they are losing lots of ice mass. every year. And maybe every few years there will be like a slowing down for a few years, but then again it goes 10 times larger. So it is very obvious to us as scientists that the Greenland ice sheet is losing its ice and it's just getting thinner and thinner.
Samples being gathered on the ice sheet itself. If the whole lot melted, the oceans would rise by 7 meters. That won't happen for centuries at least. Jason Box of the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland is getting worried.
I used to just think about this problem objectively. You know, we'd come and get the numbers, and now that I'm starting to understand more of the consequences, it's actually keeping me awake at night because I realize the significance of this place around the world and the livelihoods that are already affected by sea level rise. The best we can do is slow it down a bit. That's going to take decades. So we need to brace ourselves and prepare for sea rise.